Hi everybody, I'd like to welcome you as we journey on to our Winemaker's Flight. My name is Rob Cox. I'm the Director of Winemaking here at Paradise Springs. I'm going to lead you through this flight of wines. We'll get started with our first wine, our 2019 Chardonnay. This is barrel aged, barrel fermented, and 100% French oak. Only very little bit of it is in new oak. A lot of 1 year, 2 and 3 year barrels on this to try and keep the oak in balance on this wine. It still has a lot of good fresh acidity. I'm trying to make more of a lively, vibrant, fresh style of Chardonnay, but still put some of that subtle oak influence in this wine to kind of really make it complex and fill it out. So let's go ahead and give it a swirl and a sniff. You know, right away you kind of get that a lot of that apple and pear, Asian pear fruit notes come through, and a kind of a richness from that subtle hint of oak that's on this wine. I think it's well balanced with the oak. So let's go ahead and give it a sip here. And like I said, it's fresh and lively, and it has a good zip of acidity that kind of really wakes it up on the palate. Really works well with the little touch of oak that's on this wine, and that little bit of oak kind of adds some different notes, a little bit of like a creaminess from the mid palate. Some of that comes from stirring of the lees, the dead yeast that we leave in the barrel after the wine's done fermenting, to kind of give this wine a roundness to it. So with that, I hope you enjoy this one. Go ahead and hit pause, and then you'll be ready as you start the next wine in the flight. Thank you. All right, let's go ahead and move to the next wine in our Winemaker's Flight. This is our 2019 Reserve Chardonnay. So a lot of you are going to ask, what makes it Reserve? So this is what separates it different from our regular Chardonnay. Our regular Chardonnay, in this Chardonnay, they're both barrel fermented, barrel aged, and 100% French oak. The biggest difference you'll get on the palate will be the amount of oak on this wine. This is about 5 times more new oak on this, about 60%, where we're in that 12 to 15% range on our regular Chardonnay. So you'll definitely get that toastier note from the oak in this wine. This also spends a little bit longer time in barrel too. So that's why it gets this reserve designation. A little bit more new oak on it, and a little bit more time in barrel. But it still has good acidity to kind of really pick this wine up. And you know, as we give it a swirl and a sniff, you can definitely pick up a little bit more oak influence on the nose, a little bit of that. It's almost like a brioche, like a toasty pastry kind of note to this wine is what I get from the extra oak on it. So let's go ahead and give it a taste. Yeah, I say it's got more body and roundness. It still has that underlying acidity that really lifts the fruit up on this wine, but the extra time in oak is really kind of taking the edges off of the acidity and really round and filled the body in this wine out. It definitely has a more of a mouth coating feel to it. You know, it's still pretty versatile with different foods and all that too. So with that, go ahead and hit pause. Enjoy the rest of this one before we move on to our next wine. All right, welcome back. We're going to move to the next wine in the flight. The next wine is the 2019 Petit Manseng. It's a variety that's gained a lot of traction here in Virginia in the past 10 years. It just, the nature of the graping, thick skin, loose cluster, it just deals well with the climate and the environment we have for growing grapes here in Virginia. It really holds into its acidity really, really well. You know, it originally was done in dessert styles or a sweeter style. I tried and fashioned ours in a drier style. You'll get a touch of sweetness on this, but it's still got loads of acidity to really cut through any sweetness that comes in this wine. A lot of tropical notes as you get your nose in the glass on this wine. And for me, this is like honey, pineapple, and peaches. For me, are really the 3 main aromatic components I get. 100% stainless steel, no oak influence on this one, so you really see the true heart of this grape and what it's about and what characteristics it brings growing in the terroir that we have here in Virginia. So let's go ahead and give it a taste. Yeah, just a lot going on with this wine. You know, there's volume and body and really good acidity and really fruit forward. I would say of all of our white wines, this is definitely the most fruit driven, fruit forward style, and doing it in 100% stainless steel, which we choose to do stylistically, really pushes that fruit forward. and that little bit of residual sugar in this wine. It's less than our Somme wine, but it still helps kind of balance out the high acidity that's in this wine. But really, really bright and refreshing, good on a hot day. So with that, go ahead and hit pause and enjoy the rest of your Petit Manseng before you move on to the next wine in our flight. All right, welcome back. The next wine in our flight is our Somme Blanc. This is just a proprietary name that we came up with for this wine. This particular vintage is 100% of the hybrid grape Vidal Blanc, very prevalent grape growing in Virginia. We grow a fair amount of it and use it on a couple of our different wines. We've always done it in this style. This is, of our non-dessert wines, our sweetest wine, but it's still right around usually 1% residual sugar, so not overly sweet and cloying, syrupy. The great site for growing this out in the Shenandoah. The vines out there are on that limestone, and they struggle, but they really retain minerality and acidity that really goes along with the amount of sweetness that's left in this wine. This one also is 100% stainless steel. We don't put any oak on this particular wine. So let's go ahead and give it a swirl and sniff. For this one, I get a lot of almost like Sauvignon Blanc characteristics to it. A lot of that kind of green grassy notes, lemongrass notes on this wine. You get a little bit of like a Asian pear note on this wine for sure. Let's go and give it a taste. And as I said, of our regular standard wines, this one definitely has the most sweetness. Still a lot of good acidity to really balance out that sweetness. And it has a nice floral component too. Almost like on the palate, like a really ripe apple, lychee fruit kind of component on this wine. Really good with spicy foods if you're into that. It's an easy sipper on a hot day in the summer here in Virginia. Just a really easy, crowd-pleasing, friendly on the palate style wine. So we hope you think the same and enjoy it too. So go ahead and hit pause before we move on to the next wine in our flight. Let's go ahead and shift gears to red. We're gonna start with one of our 3 Bordeaux blends that we do. This is the lightest, most approachable of our 3 Bordeaux blends. This is our Melange. This is 2018 vintage, which was a little bit lighter vintage than the 17 or the 19 before and after it. The grapes, we produce less wine, it's a little bit tougher vintage, so it's going to be a little bit lighter in body and tannins and structure, but it's still really well put together, really well balanced. We cut back on our production to keep our quality as high as we could, given the vintage, and I think it'll show through in this particular wine. This wine, is a blend of Merlot and Petit Verdot and Cab Franc, and it really varies from the vintage on those different percentages. It's a little bit lighter in oak. It still has a good structure, but it's meant to be a little bit more approachable, more like a table wine. So let's go ahead and give it a sniff. Right away I get a good dark cherry kind of component to this wine, maybe a little bit of cranberry notes on this wine too. I'm not really getting much oak coming through in this wine. It's there, but it's very subtle. So let's go ahead and give it a taste. And it's got a good acidity to it. Make this very food-friendly wine, or very thirst quenching. The sip on its own, it is a little bit softer and more approachable. So this could be pretty versatile with like Italian red sauce or like a pizza off our food truck. But it's still soft enough that you can just enjoy it by itself. Also, a little bit more of the oak comes through in the palate, but it's really well balanced. And it's just a softer, easier drinking, real pleasurable wine with some good red fruit notes in it. So go ahead and hit pause, finish up your melange, enjoy it, and before we move to the next wine in your flight. All right, let's move to the next wine in your flight. Our next wine is our 2018 Meritage. We've done a Meritage here since the early days of Paradise Springs. Since in the more recent vintage, starting with 2016, it's kind of our middle road of our 3 Bordeaux blends. Melange being the most approachable, Meritage having a little bit more substance to it, a little more structure to it, and then Moment, which is kind of our new flagship red along with our PVT, and they're well-structured wines that are really, can be approachable in youth, but are really built for the long haul. This is starting to drink pretty well right now. I'd probably still give it a little decant. It is a 4-grape blend. It has Petit Verdot, Merlot, Cab Franc, and Cab Sauv in it. This is the last year that we've bought Cab Sauv in for red wine. The Meritage is moving forward along with the other Bordeaux blends will only be a 3-grape blend. So there is a little bit more oak on this compared to the Melange. I think you'll get that here in the nose as we give a sniff. But still a lot of good red fruit, even maybe a little bit of blueberry note on this wine. It's kind of fun. That's probably coming from the Cab Franc in this blend. But you know, we're really particular about what barrels go into this wine. You know, we have kind of a heritage, a legacy with our Meritage here. It's done well critically and in competition, that we're trying to, you know, no wine's the same, especially in Argento year to year, but we kind of have a certain things we're looking for in our Meritage, and I think even a tougher vintage, like the 2018 vintage, I think you'll find it here. So let's go ahead and give it a taste. Yeah, I think the fruit's really elevated in this wine. It's starting to really open up and drink much better now. It's really coming into its own. I think you'll see this wine along with any other 18 reds as you taste from Paradise Springs. You'll get a good layer of acidity behind them, which you know will allow the fruit flavors to be bright and fresh and as it ages, and really what are one of the components that really allow it to age with wine really well. You know, definitely a little bit more oak on this too, which is going to give this wine a little bit more structure. You know, which would make this better pairing with a little bit more heartier food than say the Melange, which is a little bit better with lighter foods. So with that, we hope you enjoy your Winemaker's Flight and enjoy. We enjoy having you share these videos with us, and as you walk through your tastings and try the wines here at Paradise. Cheers.